Hello and welcome to another episode of Senior Soundings. I'm your host, Gerry LePage, and we're delighted as always to have you along. And along with me today to talk with you is one of our star volunteers. His name is George Neubauer. George, it's great to have you to join us today. And just so our viewers know, George is an active volunteer in many respects for East Bay Community Action Program, including our SHIP program, which is Senior Health Insurance Information Program. It's essentially Medicare counseling. George has been doing Medicare counseling for a number of years and is a certified Medicare counselor. In addition, George also works with our VITA program. That's Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. And of course, that operates during the tax season when volunteers help literally hundreds of Rhode Islanders complete their tax returns, both federal and state, right, George?
Yes.
And George also serves on our AmeriCorps Seniors Advisory Council, which helps to coordinate recruiting volunteers as well as delivering programs and services throughout our service area, which ranges from the Upper East Bay in East Providence all the way through Bristol and Newport counties, including Jamestown. So we have a big presence across the state, and we really need volunteers desperately for all of those. So George, again, thank you for joining us and for talking with our audience about what it means to be a volunteer and the sense of fulfillment that you get out of that as well. So I'm thinking maybe we could start a little bit with your professional background. I know that you're retired now, but is there possibly a connection between what you did in your career and how that motivated you to become such an industrious and enthusiastic volunteer? Take it away.
Thank you for the invitation, Jerry. My career, I worked for 4 different affiliates of Boys and Girls Clubs of America in 4 different states. And so after 25 years, on our 4th move, my wife says, I don't care where your next job is, I'm not moving again. Because it seemed like every time we moved, we had another child. So I spent 10 years working for the American Red Cross locally for the Rhode Island chapter. And I guess in a sense, being in social work or nonprofit management is a way of being involved with the community. And you know, when you retire and you're not involved in the community, you try to figure out ways that you can stay involved in the community or get back involved with the community.
Well, it certainly stands to reason that having had a career in community service, the Boys and Girls Clubs, that as a retiree you would be drawn toward, again, doing some kind of volunteer work that's going to serve the community. So it seems like a very natural progression for you. You mentioned the Boys and Girls Club, and my office in Newport is at the Florence Gray Center, in which the Boys and Girls Club of Newport occupies a significant portion of the lower floor. So we work fairly closely with the Boys and Girls Clubs in this community, and so I'm glad to see we have that kind of connection.
Sure.
So now again, I was in the introduction, I told our viewers how there are a number of different volunteer hats that you wear, and that's only with East Bay Community Action. I know there may be other volunteer work that you do as well, and hopefully we'll have time to get into that as well. But tell us a little bit more about the SHIP program and the experience of Medicare counseling.
Very interesting. I was retired. My wife was still working, and on the radio, I heard a public service announcement from Charlie Fogarty, former
yes.
lieutenant governor, who at the time was the director of the Department of Elderly Affairs.
Yes.
And that had since changed to the Office of Healthy Aging under the Raimondo administration.
Yes.
And they were looking for, Medicare volunteers. And it was kind of self-serving in a way because I have a daughter with special needs, and I thought, I need to know about that. So I figured out the best way to know as much as I could would be to volunteer and be trained. And so that's how I got started with Medicare open enrollment.
And there are quite a bit of moving parts to Medicare. Of course, you mentioned open enrollment, which is certainly the busiest time of year because for our viewers who may not know, open enrollment is known officially as the annual enrollment period, but this is the time of year. It's always between October 15th and December 7th every year, and that is the time of year, that close to 8-week period, where Medicare beneficiaries can compare the plan that they have with what's going to be available in the coming year. And we do get a lot of people who come to have their plans reviewed.
Sure.
So it can be a pretty hectic time.
Right.
But by the same token, people turn 65 and age into Medicare every day at the rate of about 10,000 people a day. So Rhode Island certainly has its share of those. And our eastern half of the state certainly has its share of those. So we're pretty busy year-round, really.
Well, I can tell you my experience, given that I was 65, Part A of Medicare is free.
Yeah.
So I signed up for that right away.
Sure.
I was covered under my wife's insurance plan at work, so I didn't have the immediacy to sign up for Part B until later when she retired, and then I had to sign up for Part B. But interestingly enough, she didn't have to sign up for Part B right away because she, under her contract, had 3 years of health insurance beyond her retirement.
I see.
Though
But
that
now
only
that-
lasts about 8 months before
see.
she has to sign up for Part B. And
Okay.
so that's where, that was my involvement. And then obviously when you learn about Medicare Advantage plans, rather than the Part C, as they call them, rather than getting Part D with a drug plan, a lot of people will opt in to the Part C because of the other benefits that are involved with Part C.
Right.
So,
Well, I like to call it pay them now or pay them later. Pay them now is taking original Medicare, getting a Medigap plan to cover what Part A and Part B do not cover, and yet none of those cover a prescription, so then you also need a prescription plan. So in terms of monthly premiums, you're paying more that way. And of course, there is the premium for Part B, which is, as George alluded to, was able to delay enrolling in Part B, and the reason for doing so is because if you have employment coverage of your own or from the spouse, you don't need Part B, and you shouldn't need to be paying that premium, which is almost $175 a month this year. So if you can set that aside and not have to pay that $175 extra, that's the reason for delaying enrolling in Part B. But again, that's only if you have coverage from a spouse's employer or the like, such as in your case.
and you have to be sensitive to the timing because if you don't sign up in the appropriate time, then you get penalized and you'll pay an additional 10% penalty on the premium
Right.
for the rest of the time. So
Yes.
you need to be conscious of that. And so there's a lot of intricacies with Medicare that you learn and you help people work through. And then on an annual basis, when they come in, say if they have a drug plan and they want to see what the drug coverage is on the current plan as compared to the other plans that are available here in Rhode Island, because sometimes there are new plans that come into the state, and sometimes their prescription drugs change throughout the course of the year, and they want to make sure they're in the best plan that works to their advantage financially.
Exactly, yes.
So.
And essentially Medicare Advantage is financial savings for most people. There are many Medicare Advantage plans that don't charge an additional premium. So even if you have the Part B premium to pay, we won't get into this today, but not everyone has to pay the Part B premium. It depends on income and assets. But you can buy a Medicare Advantage plan that does not add any additional premium.
Right.
And yet still covers things like vision, dental, hearing, your pharmacy, and so on. But there are out-of-pocket costs that you may incur. So it's good to come and speak with us to, get a sense, especially if you're trying to decide how to get Medicare for the first time. Make sure to come and see us. So. All right, George, well, we've spent a little bit of time talking about SHIP. Now, the VITA program, Volunteer Income Tax Assistance. Again, how long have you been doing that, and was there something, again, that inspired you to sign up for that?
Well, I started doing the Medicare open enrollment about 6 years ago, and so when the new year came around and the tax season was beginning, and I was a math minor in college, and so I said it wasn't like I wasn't already doing my children's taxes and my own taxes and some of my wife's friends' taxes. I thought, well, I could do that. And my wife was still working, and I was, still at times getting up in the morning with nothing to do and all day to do it.
Right.
And so it was obviously a different population that you engage with, and it was, anyone who needed to file that met the qualifications income-wise, so you could meet a lot of different people.
Right. And now, what kind of training is involved in that? We told our viewers how we have to take an online certification exam every year for Medicare. But what about tax preparation? That seems to me as though it would be very complicated and laborious.
In some ways it is, but like Medicare, there is a software program that you utilize, and the Medicare program is a government program that you utilize. In VITA, it's not a government program, but it's a private program that's available to you. So you kind of work through the program, and you have some training classes, and you go through some examples, and you got to figure out, what is the person's tax liability, because not only, unlike Medicare, which is just for an individual, you might be working with people who are filing jointly,
right?
Or they're filing singly, but they're also filing as head of household. So, the software program really helps you focus in on the questions and the information are needed, to help those individuals. Because obviously what they're looking to do is to, meet the filing requirement and to save as much money as they can possibly save.
Sure.
So I've had experiences where people would come in with last year's tax return that they had done outside with an agency.
Right.
And, when they come and meet with us for the first time and there's no fee for us to work with them, and they realize they paid a couple $100 last year. So right off the bat,
they've got a savings.
There.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be able to, see the smile on people's faces.
Sure. Sure.
And then when you've been around for a couple of years doing it, and people come back, they want to come back and have you do it for them.
Exactly. Yes. They want George. Yes.
So, not that everybody does that, but you do make friends. You do feel part of the community. You feel a sense of purpose.
Sure.
So
sure.
it's all positive in that respect.
And it's a really important service as well. This isn't something that's just like a temporary thing, or, this can be, well, I won't say life-changing, but certainly if someone sits down with you and you prepare their taxes and they realize they're going to have an extra $1,000 in their pocket from a refund, that can really change things in the sense of what their outlook might be on some other aspect of their lives that they've been wondering, I've got to come up with some X amount of dollars, but how am I going to do that? And
when you think about it, because you're not dealing with the wealthiest population.
Right.
And so it's helpful, that money will be well spent for them personally.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that it's a free service, because I did neglect to mention that, and it is also true of the Medicare counseling. We are trained to take people through the Medicare website, show them the alternatives, but it's the client's choice. And the same with the income tax. There's no fee involved. You're not coaching people on what kinds of deductions to claim, or you're basically just following the software.
Right. Well, what's important is for people to realize that they make the decisions. All you can do is provide them with the information and the process to complete the necessary forms for them.
Right, and to make an informed decision.
Right.
Sure.
I did have one lady who couldn't get an appointment for the last day of Medicare, and her friend, that I knew well, said, "Could you help her?" I said, "Okay, I could stop after I volunteer and do her form." Well, that was very nice. She was very complimentary about it and was able to save some money. And so, because Medicare ends beginning of December, around Christmas time, I get a box or a tin of Christmas cookies in the mail. Now, we don't accept gratuities or anything of that nature, but given the circumstances, I enjoyed the cookies.
Sure, and I guess it's just human nature. They see you as having done them a tremendous favor, and you applied skill and reasoning to the process and treated them with respect, and they are grateful. So it's, I think it's just a natural response to want to try to send something.
Right.
But it is true, we're not supposed to accept gratuities and donations or the like. So, all right, George, we've covered SHIP and VITA. Now, another volunteer role that you fill for East Bay Community Action is the AmeriCorps Seniors Advisory Council. So, tell our viewers what that is all about and what you do.
That's a new venture for me this year, is to be sitting with people that are involved with other programs that the East Bay Community Action Program offers. And so it's been educational for me to find out the array of programs that are available through East Bay CAP. I was very impressed with the array of programs, because like Boys and Girls Clubs, East Bay CAP is a private nonprofit organization, and I guess I really didn't understand the variety of programs that are offered throughout the community. So it's been an education, and I just keep people appraised of how the Medicare open enrollment and the tax program efforts are going.
I see. So you report to the council on the programs that you're involved in.
Yes.
But then you get to listen to other people report on whether it's the weatherization program or foster grandparents or any of a couple of dozen different programs and services that the agency offers across the communities that it serves, for which volunteers are needed. So,
Yeah, there's a place for every volunteer, you know, if they want to contact the organization
Right.
and just say, well, what might your interest be, you know? And
Sure.
So,
and again, as you and I have discussed, just learning a bit about what someone's work background has been, or what their hobbies are, you know, those kinds of things that interest them in their life, that
Sure.
they might have a skill or an interest that they can apply to the volunteer work. And because we have such a variety of programs, there's something for just about everyone, I would think.
yeah, someone like me who just has a need, and when talking about Medicare and thinking about my daughter, I need to know that.
Right,
So
right.
that was a motivation initially, and I stayed with it.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that you did, George. And now, outside of East Bay Community Action, are there any other volunteer projects that you work on?
Well, I am active in my church, and
What do you do there?
well, I did sing in the choir for 25 years.
Wow.
You know, so, and then when I retired from choir, given that they were practicing late in the evening,
Yes.
and it was kind of like past my bedtime. But I also lecture at Mass on Friday mornings and
Okay.
serve.
So you're doing some of the Bible readings?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And an altar server, so you know, getting things set up for the priest and providing, you know, the necessary elements for the Mass,
Right,
so forth.
right.
You know, and aside from that, given that I am involved with the church, I've been asked to serve funerals. So,
Oh.
you know, and again, generally the funerals are people who are my age. It always gives me pause. You know,
Yeah,
I did have a friend who whose mother passed, and I happened to go to high school with this woman. You know,
Oh.
and so when I went to the wake, and I said, you know what concerns me? I said, your mother and I are the same age. She looked me right in the eye and said, you got nothing to worry about. Only the good die young. So I'm trying to hang around for a little longer.
Okay, good. So we've talked a lot about, you know, various aspects of volunteering and the like, but we have a few minutes left, George. Would you mind sharing with our audience what is the source of fulfillment, or are the sources of fulfillment that you get from volunteering? You know, you're not being paid. You're spending money on gasoline, possibly, to drive from your house to wherever it is that you're going to be doing your volunteer work. So you're incurring expense, you're spending time and the like. So what's in it for you? Where's the payday for you? What form does it take?
Well, I guess it gives me purpose, you know, in retirement, to be helping other people, you know. And, you know, people have helped me through the course of my life. So, you know, it's just a matter of giving back. You make friends, okay? Given that I've been at it for a while, people will say hello to me in the supermarket.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And the fact when they come for an appointment and ask to get on my list is kind of like, okay, you know, that's very nice of you to do that. So you feel part of a community, okay? You have friends, you know, so there's a social aspect to it, because there's other volunteers that you're currently working with as well. And so it makes
Right.
for a nice group of friends.
Right. Right.
And gives me it takes time away from sitting there watching television.
There you go. Yes. Yeah. You get just so much of the Price is Right,
Yeah.
and then you got to do something else.
Yeah.
So,
Coming up this summer, one of the things I also do with church is that we have a mission trip. We take teenagers up to Orland, Maine, to a community organization called HOME. It's homemakers involved in more employment. It's when the employment up in Maine, where a lot of the jobs got shipped out of the country.
Right.
The shoe industry used to be
sure. Yes.
employ a lot of people, and the timber industry used to employ a lot of people too. So
Sure.
we go up there and help the agency with some of its projects that they may have a need for in terms of repairing for facilities and so forth. So this year, coming up next month, we have 20 teenagers, and boys and girls, and we go up, and I basically a driver, because I take one of the vans and fill it up and drive up and stay there, because then I become the gopher if we need something.
Right.
I go around. And one of the other things that happens in the day at the end of the quote work day for the teenagers, we take them to a lake to go swimming. And in my past life, I've been a lifeguard. So
Oh, great. So that works in as well.
Yeah, I worked that in, and so then I obviously around to bring them back home.
Right.
So.
How is it maintaining order in the bus with 20 teenagers?
Well, you don't have that many in the bus, given that the capacity of the vehicles is limited, and we generally separate the boys from the girls in terms of the trip up. But it's not a problem. Like most teenagers, what do you think they're doing sitting in the bus?
Well,
I think they're on their phones playing games.
Of course.
So,
yes.
Maybe you'll interrupt them and try to get them to say a few prayers along the way for a safe journey.
Yeah, excellent. Well, George, we're just about out of time. I'd like to remind our audience that George is a volunteer with the East Bay Community Action Program. We are a nonprofit private agency that serves a pretty big chunk of Rhode Island in a number of different ways. And so, of course, if you have any questions about wanting to volunteer, or if you or someone you know needs a service of some kind, we welcome you to call. Depending on what the need is, the main number for East Bay CAP is 401-437-1000. And if you explain what you're calling about, they'll direct you to someone who can help. So, George, again, I thank you so much for all of your insight, and I wish we had a little bit more time to talk about all of this, but thank you for all you do as a volunteer, and thank you on behalf of all the people that you help.
You're welcome. Happy to be obliged.
Viewers, thank you for coming. We loved having you aboard, and we welcome you to join us again for the next episode of Senior Soundings. So long.